It's 2020. I'm looking for a house with my fiance. We are basically just like looking at any house that we could find at this point because we're trying to get into the house with enough time to do any work that we need to do before the wedding. We come across this house that just seems kind of too good to be true. It's a flag lot, so we're kind of excited because we're like, oh, very private. And we have our own street, so we could put a gate in the front. So we're just kind of texting back and forth like, oh, there's so many things we could do with this house. It's 3,500 square foot, which is humongous. And the list price was, I believe, $550,000. We immediately call our agent. We're like, hey, we want to set this up. We want to go look at this house. On our way, we keep missing where the actual property is because it is kind of hard to find a flag lot if you're not looking for it. Eventually we find it. And as we're pulling all the way up the driveway, we see our agent just kind of like shaking her head like, So I just kind of was like, let me brush it off because my agent and I are very close. She's like a second mom to me. We get up to the house and she goes, I don't think you're gonna be too thrilled with what you find inside. So I'm like, let's go up. So we get there and the listing agent is out front and she kind of forewarns us that there's a couple tenants in the house that are sleeping, but we should still go in all the rooms and look around anyway. So I was kind of like turned off when I look at my fiance and I'm like, okay, there's people sleeping in here. We open up the door and immediately our jaws were on the floor. It was nothing like what the photos of the listing were. So it turns out the house was built only about 5 or 6 years ago, and someone bought the house as a brand new construction. Well, within that 5 or 6 years that had passed, they completely destroyed the inside of that house. When I tell you it was covered head to toe with graffiti, different like weird art pieces. Apparently the guy who bought the house was some Chinese artist who did really well in China and then tried to come here to America to sell his art, and things just didn't quite go as planned. But he turned the entire house into his canvas and completely destroyed the house. What was supposed to be an open floor concept house had plywood boards. Literally, you could see the nails sticking out of it. They had drilled the plywood to kind of separate different rooms just to make additional rooms with mattresses on the floor for additional tenants. So all in all, there was about 13 tenants in the house. They're all sleeping on mattresses in different rooms. We're like tiptoeing around them, looking at the house, looking at each other like, oh man, this is gonna cost a lot of money in rehab if we decided to go with this house. I don't even know why in my mind I thought, oh, well, we could still fix it up because the house was really just an utter piece of crap. We finally go upstairs to kind of look at those rooms. They literally took a regular bedroom size, which is not too big, and they put like 8-foot plywood boards to divide rooms within rooms just to fit more people in on these little twin mattresses. There was clothes everywhere, and it wasn't that it was a hoarder house, it was just messy people with clothes everywhere. Just when I thought like, okay, this couldn't get any worse and there's nothing that we're gonna find that's a surprise at this point with this house, the listing agent was like, oh, go downstairs, you should check out the basement, it's a really big basement. So we go downstairs and we hear like all this machinery like, and I'm thinking to myself like, why does it sound like the dry cleaners? This guy apparently is selling like wedding dresses, like Alibaba and Wish wedding dresses out of his basement, all for cheap, all like fake cheap material, and he's got them all on that like mechanic rack thing that you would see at like a dry cleaners. So now me and my fiance are looking at each other like, this guy's like literally running like an illegitimate business out of his basement. Chances are when we kick him out, he ain't taking it with him. And with all the crap going on with COVID, we can't even kick any tenants out anyway. So we would have bought that house and we'd have been stuck with 13 tenants. No thank you. They took a beautiful house and completely bait and switched us because they used the photos from the original listing 5 years ago when it was a brand new construction to list the house instead of showing you the photos of what was going on in there. We learned a lesson that day that you can't ever trust the photos on a listing.